What's going on, everyone? So we're on the fourth and last gospel. There's 33 slides. Jesus was 33 when he was crucified. There's 33 degrees in Freemasonry. What does 33 represent? Well, the 33 represents the 33 spinal columns, the spinal bones that you have. And I've gone over this previously, how the Christ, the chrism, the oil travels up them, also known as Jacob's ladder, and then it rests in the place of the skull, also known as Golgotha, where it's crucified in your pineal gland, and that is your resurrection, where you get to go see God. But that's the anatomical way to talk about the Bible. I talk about the astrotheological way. So let's go into it. Now, this one's going to be great because there's all sorts of tangents that we're going to go on, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on in the Gospel of John. It might be my favorite one. So we'll start with the 12 signs. The first sign I talk about is Aquarius, which is represented by the man. Now, technically, Aries begins the year. However, because the year kind of starts with us in Aquarius, that's why I choose to start with Aquarius. Um, there's keywords in Aquarius. If you look at this picture, like son of man or man, because this is the sign of the man, whereas Virgo is the sign of the woman. Baptism, because this is how you baptize someone. Water pitcher, because this is a water pitcher. Fountain, because at the time, a lot of Greek fountains were made like this. Goes back to the story of Zeus and the young boy, which I've told many times. I'm not going to tell it now. You could find it in previous videos. Um, Stream, river, pond, lake, ocean, sea, water bodies. Aquarius is an air sign when it comes down to it in astrology. However, because there's water in it, they've encoded messages to reflect Aquarius as water, whereas Pisces is the mutable water sign, which is actually a water sign, so it's actually water. So all the same water examples play out. And whether you're talking about Aquarius as water or Pisces as water depends on the patterns that they're going to make in the heavens, which we'll get into. And Aries is the ram. And in Aries, you have March 21st, which is the spring equinox. It's a 12-hour day, a 12-hour night. It's also the Passover. There's three different Passovers that occur during Aries. The first one is the oldest one, which is the astrotheological Passover, which is when the sun literally passes over the equator and starts to make its way back to the top and to its height in summer solstice in Cancer. In the Jewish Passover, the angel of death passes over all the Jewish households, and anyone that doesn't have the lamb or the ram, again, Aries, the lamb is a baby ram, ram's blood smeared on their doorposts, their firstborn sons get killed. The third Passover is the Christian one, which is known as Easter, which is the resurrection of God's Son. So there's three different types of Passovers. So whenever you hear ram, lamb, shepherd, or ram's horn, you're talking about Aries. Taurus is the bull. And when you look at the sky and you see Taurus during the season where it's supposed to be, you know that you need to put the plow on the bull so that you can plant the seeds so you can harvest in Virgo and Libra. So whenever you hear bull, ox, calf, or cow, again, cow is a female bull, you're talking about Taurus. Gemini is the twins. It's the story of Castor and Pollux Troy, whose sister was Helen of Troy. It's the story of Achilles. So whenever you hear twins or brothers, they're talking about Gemini. Cancer is the crab, and it's the sideways moving creature. So just as the sun rises a degree on its axis starting on December 25th, it stops on June 21st. Then for 3 days, it rises to the same degree, hence moving sideways. Then on June 25th, it lowers a degree. The crab in the ancient Egyptian time was known as the scarab. So whenever you hear crab or beetle, you're talking about Cancer. Leo is the king. He's the lion. He's the king of the jungle or the king of the savannah, the king of the desert, whatever you want to call it. The ruling planet of Leo is actually the sun. So whenever you're talking about lion, lioness, or cub, you're talking about Leo. Virgo is the woman holding the wheat stalk. So remember before when I said that you planted Taurus? Well, the virgins would cultivate the wheat in Virgo in order to make the bread for the year. So whenever you hear virgin, wheat, grain, seed, barley, or corn, these are all grainy things, things that are harvested during Virgo. They're talking about Virgo. You can even throw in the word woman too, because Virgo is a sign of the woman. Libra is the justice. It's the scales, it's the balance, it's the just one. The reason it's the justice is because it judges God's sun as it passes over the fall equinox and begins its descent into winter, into cold, into death. So remember, during the Passover, the sun is going up and it's rising a degree a day. The days are getting longer, the nights are getting shorter, it's getting warmer. It's being heralded. Here, things are going to start to get cold, winter, death. We'll get into all of that. But basically here it's being punished. Libra is also wine season, which is when you plant for the grapes and Taurus, you could press the wine here. Libra is also olive oil season, which is when you press the olives, you crush the olives and make the oil. So whenever you hear law, judge, justice, the just one, divorce, marriage, court, wine, vineyard, wine press, grapes, um, vinegar, like we're going to see at the end of this presentation, olive oil or olive oil, you're talking about Libra. Scorpio is the scorpion, and he is the betrayer. When a scorpion bites you or stings you, it leaves an imprint in your skin that looks like a pair of lips. It's why the mafia has the kiss of death. Now, I literally have an uploaded picture on my YouTube channel and under the pictures section to show you what it looks like when a scorpion attacks you. It looks like a pair of lips, and it's why the mafia has the kiss of death, and it's why Jesus was betrayed by Judas with the kiss. So the sun is judged in Libra, it's betrayed in Scorpio, finally in Sagittarius. This is where the bow and the arrow shoot the sun and inflict further punishment on the sun. This is where the sun dies. Why? Well, because on December 21st, the sun is at its lowest point. It's the winter solstice. It's the longest night of the year, the shortest day of the year. It's dead. It's the dead of winter. The ancients would look out and say that the sun didn't crack the horizon. So they would say God's sun was dead. And then suddenly it walks sideways for 3 days like the crab again. So suddenly God's sun was dead for 3 days. When on December 25th, or the birth of God's son, and the birth of every single ancient deity, December 25th, it wakes back up. It's born again, a brand new sun, the light of the world, rises again and comes back to life and starts to make its trek again, going all the way up. So whenever you hear horse, bow and arrow, spear, or horseman, you're talking about Sagittarius. Finally, you have Capricorn, who's the goat because he likes to climb the mountain. If you look at the zodiac wheel on the right, you'll notice Capricorn's all the way at the bottom. Now put a little sun all the way at the bottom and start to walk it to the left a degree a day alongside the wheel going up, up, up to its height in Cancer. It starts to climb up the great mountain in Capricorn, just like the goat. And this is why. This is going to be real fun. So let's just jump right into John, okay? Now, before I do that, let me remind you the rules. This is what happens. I am using the constellations they knew about at the time. I'm using Ptolemy's 48 constellations from 150 AD. And that's basically it. That's basically what we're doing here. And what I'm doing is I'm going through each chapter in the book of whatever I'm doing, but in this case, the book of John. And I'm going through each chapter. And what I do is I find all the astrology in each chapter. And then we make patterns. And we do this chapter by chapter. There's no spillover from one to the next, even though I'm sure I'll find more interesting patterns. But we're going chapter by chapter. So, chapter 1. The true light that gives light to everyone was coming into the world. For the law was given through Moses. I baptize with water. Look, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world. You will be called Cephas, which, when translated, is Peter. The light that gives light to everyone in the world is the sun. Right? Makes sense. The law is Virgo. No, I lied. The law is Libra. My apologies. Let me change that real quick. Sorry about that. The law is Libra. The baptism is Aquarius. The Lamb of God is Aries. Cephas is a constellation in one of Ptolemy's 48 from 150 AD. It goes from Pisces to Gemini. So let's talk about this real quick. Ptolemy, 48 constellations from 150 AD. Cephas, the name for Peter, goes from Pisces to Gemini. So it starts in Pisces. Peter is Pisces. Why is Peter Pisces? Well, his name is Simon. And he's given the name Peter, which doesn't really make sense if you're talking like Jonathan to John, or Michael to Mike, or Samantha to Sam, or Ronald to Ron. I could go on. Simon to Peter doesn't make sense unless you understand astrology. Now, we know that he was called Cephas, and Cephas starts in Pisces. So Peter is one of the 12 zodiac signs. He's one of the 12 disciples. He represents one of the 12 zodiac signs. He represents Pisces, because Cephas is from Pisces to Gemini. But how do we know Peter is Pisces? Well, because he was a fisherman. So the fish is Pisces. So there's another connection there. And also, we have the connection that the ruling planet of Pisces is a planet called Jupiter, or Jew. Peter. There's just a couple of things, more than a couple of things that point to this direction. But anyway, the law is Libra, the Lamb of God is Aries. These are opposing signs. It goes from Pisces to Gemini. You add Aquarius for the baptism, and you have 5 connecting signs in a row. Look at that pattern, 5 sentences, barely 5 connections, 5 connecting signs in a row. So let's move on. Let's do chapter 2. When the wine was gone, nearby stood 6 stone water jugs. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, Jesus went up to Jerusalem. In the temple courts, he found people selling cattle, sheep, and doves. So the wine is Libra, the water jug is Aquarius. The Passover takes place in Aries. I explained that already. Now, Aries and Libra are opposing signs. The cattle is Taurus, the sheep is Aries. Aries and Taurus are connecting signs. Look at these patterns that we're finding in every single book I touch. Amazing, right? Chapter 3, just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up. So the snake is Ophiuchus, the Son of Man is Aquarius. This is referring to the Moses in the desert being challenged story. Okay, so that's just like a note for me to just explain to you guys this story. In Exodus, Moses is walking through the desert, and his people are getting unruly. They're mad, they're walking around, they're hungry, they're tired, and they come after him, basically. And what happens is snakes come out of the ground, and they start biting everybody, and they kill a bunch of people. Some people are dying but survived, and they beg Moses to talk to God, and for Moses to talk to God and to ask for forgiveness so that they may live. Moses goes back in his tent. He talks to God. God talks back to him. He says, what I want you to do is take a serpent, and I want you to wrap it around a staff, and all those who look at it may live. Well, if you know anything, the Jewish, or at the time that these Gospels were written, the Greeks were around too. And if you know anything about the staff with the serpent around it, that's the rod of Asclepius. In fact, it actually goes back even further. It goes back, you have the caduceus now, which is the snake wrapped around the staff, the medical symbol. You have, and it goes even further back to the east, to the Kundalini. Incidentally, Moses comes from the word Tuthmosis, from Egypt, and he is based on Akhenaten. He was not a real person. He didn't write the first 5 books of the Torah, and he was not a real person. He was derived from older things, just like everything else was. Now, 330, he must become greater, I must become less. This is John the Baptist talking. So look at the zodiac wheel below. Jesus is born on December 25th, and I'm not going to argue with you guys when Jesus was born. Some people are going to say, if you literally believe the Bible, you're going to argue with me. You're going to say he was born on 9/11, or he was born on the Feast of the Tabernacles, or it was around Passover. You're going to give me a bunch of different ones, and I'm telling you, that's fine for you to believe that for that. What I'm telling you is the history and the astrotheology and the science that gives you the ability for you to interpret it that way. Jesus is born December 25th, just like every other god. John the Baptist, or St. John's Day, is June 24th. Look it up in the Catholic calendar. They're exactly 6 months apart. So if you place a dot in Capricorn at the bottom of the wheel for Jesus and start to climb up the mountain as time goes on, well, if you're going up the mountain, you're going to put John the Baptist in Cancer. He's going to start going down the mountain. So as he increases, I must decrease. That's what that means. Then leaving her water jar. I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. The sower and the reaper may be glad together. Once more he visited Cana in Galilee, where he had turned water into wine. So the water jug is Aquarius. The harvest is Virgo. The sower happens in Taurus, and the reaper is Virgo. The water into wine story. This is just a note for myself to tell you guys a little story about how we turn the water into wine. Remember, Jesus is the sun. We're not going to talk about how he literally did this. We're going to talk about what the sun does, because we're going to have a couple of these where we're going to explain to you how the sun does this. So the reason God is considered a man and Mother Earth is considered a woman has to do with one thing only, and it has to do with the sacred rain, the rain that comes from heaven, God's sacred fluid. In Hebrew, the word is shemen. We get the word semen from it. It's a sacred fluid. So you have to think about this metaphorically. God's semen, God's sacred fluid, comes onto Mother Earth, and impregnates her. And from her belly, food, vegetation, and all sorts of things grow. So what happens is it's raining in Taurus. That's when you plant. That's April showers bring May flowers. Everybody knows that. Well, you plant, and then it rains and it rains and it rains. And then in Libra, you pick the grapes, you plant the grapes in Taurus, and then Libra, you pick the grapes and you crush them into wine. That's how the Son of God turns water into wine. Now there is in Jerusalem near the sheep gate, will not be judged, but has crossed over from death to life. And he has given him authority to judge because he is the Son of Man. So the sheep is Aries. The judgment or the judge takes place in Libra. These are opposing signs. The Son of Man is Aquarius. Aquarius and Libra are 2/4 of the cardinal signs. Jesus crosses to the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. The Jewish Passover was near. Passover festival was near. Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat? Here is a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish. Jesus walks on water. That's actually the title. Which the Son of Man will give you? It is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is the bread that comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. So the sea is Pisces. The Passover is Aries. But it's near, right? The Passover festival was near. So we're not in Aries yet. The sea is Pisces. The Passover not there yet. We're still in Pisces. Good so far? The bread is Virgo. Virgo and Pisces are opposing signs. The barley is harvested in Virgo. So you have the wheat for the bread and you have the barley loaves. Well, the barley makes the beer and the barley makes the loaves here too. That's also Virgo. And the 2 small fish are the 2 small fish that are literally Pisces. The walking on water story. Jesus walks on water. So how does the Son walk on water? Remember, Jesus is the Son. How does the Son walk on water? Well, have you ever gone out to a lake at sunset and see the Son walking along the water? Literally walks on water. Also, because we're talking about similar time frames right here, right? We're talking about the Jews, and we're talking about the Jews, and we're talking about the Greeks, right? They were I'm not going to say they were competing, but they were around at the same time. Their history goes back then. Now, what did the Greeks do? Well, they gave him the name Christos, which means Christ. Christos in Greek means oil. Now, let me ask you a question. Doesn't oil also walk on water? When you pour oil onto water, doesn't it just sit on top of the water? These are double entendres and deep encoded things that they put in the Bible for you to figure out. Again, they tell you this, and Jesus tells you this over and over and over again. He says, for those with eyes to see and ears to hear. He also talks about not throwing pearls to the swine, right? So the Son of Man is Aquarius. Now you have Aquarius and Pisces, which are connecting signs. Yet not one of you keeps the law. Rivers of living water. Messiah will come from David's descendants and from Bethlehem. So the law is Libra. The water is Pisces. Bethlehem is a combination of 2 Hebrew words, bet meaning house and lechem meaning bread. So the house of bread, which is Virgo, which is the lady with the wheat stalk. Pisces and Virgo are opposing signs. Libra and Virgo are connecting signs. So look at all these patterns we get out of maybe, 2 sentences? Jesus went to the Mount of Olives, the teachers of the law. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, I am the light of the world. But if I do judge, my decisions are true. So the olives are Libra. The law is Libra. The light of the world. Listen to this. Jesus said, I am the light of the world. Well, what is the light of the world? It is the sun. The judge is Libra. The God's only begotten Son, the light of the world. This entire chapter, chapter 8, is just devoted to Libra and telling you that he's the Son. While I am in the world, I am the light of the world. They brought to the Pharisees the man who had been blind. Therefore, the Pharisees also asked him how he had received his sight. Do you believe in the Son of Man? For judgment I have come into this world, the light of the world again. The story about the Son healing the blind man. I keep leaving myself little crib notes because I don't want to type all this shit out, but I will tell you the story about the Son healing the blind man. So how does the Son, S-U-N, heal a blind man? Well, think about it. In the story, the blind man comes up to Jesus. Jesus licks his fingers, touches his eyes. Or I think he cakes his face with something, and then when he takes off, he could see. I forget, to be honest with you. It's irrelevant because in the story, basically, Jesus heals his sight. However, when the sun goes down, we're all blind. We can't see in front of us. We have street lamps, we have the moon, we have the stars to help us. However, when the sun comes up in the morning and licks its fingers and touches your eyes, suddenly you're given the gift of sight. So the Son of Man is Aquarius and the judgment is in Libra. Anyone who does not enter the sheep pen by the gate but climbs in by some other way is a thief and a robber. So when he sees the wolf coming, he abandons the sheep and runs away. Is it not written in your law? Then Jesus went back across the Jordan to the place where John had been baptizing in the early days. So the sheep is Aries. The wolf is a constellation called Lupus, which borders Libra. These are opposing signs. The law is Libra, and the baptizing takes place in Aquarius. Are there not 12 hours of daylight? Interesting. Anyone who walks in the daytime will not stumble, for they see by the world's light. So then he told them plainly, Lazarus is dead. Then Thomas, also known as Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. When it was almost time for the Jewish Passover. 12 hours of daylight happens on the spring and fall equinoxes only. Then it says it was almost time for the Jewish Passover, so we know he was definitely talking about the spring equinox. As far as Thomas goes, remember, each one of the disciples represents one of the zodiac signs. Thomas, To'am in Hebrew means twin, and he's given the name Didymus too. Didymus in Greek, remember, Greek too. Everything was Greek and Hebrew back then. Greek means twin, so Gemini, that would be him. So that's the next slide for the Lazarus explanation. Okay, Lazarus, I got to tell you guys, is not a real person that came from the dead. Lazarus is actually a much older story. It literally is almost verbatim by name. So let's get into this. Lazarus is Osiris, who Horus raised from the dead. The Greek name Lazarus equals Eliezer in Hebrew and means whom God helps. It is a strange coincidence, firstly, that the person who Jesus resurrects happens to be named whom God helps. And secondly, that Eliezer, or breaking down its original components in Hebrew, El-Azar, closely resembles a combination of the Semitic word for God, El, with the Egyptian name for Osiris, Osir. This goes back to the Egyptians. Lazarus is not an original name. It was not an original story, and it was handed down. 6 days before the Passover, Jesus came to Bethany, but one of his disciples, Judas Iscariot, who was later to betray him, objected. Jesus found a young donkey and sat on it, as it is written, the hour has come for the Son of Man to be glorified. Very truly, I tell you, unless a kernel of wheat falls to the ground and dies, it remains only a single seed. We have heard from the law. You are going to have the light just a little while longer. Believe in the light. Passover is Aries. Judas is Scorpio. So we had Peter as Pisces, Thomas the twin, Gemini. Judas is Scorpio, the betrayer with the kiss. And John the Baptist, Aquarius, the man with the water pitcher. So that's a third of the whole zodiac. The donkey is the constellation Acellus Borealis, which is in Cancer. The Son of Man is Aquarius. The wheat is Virgo. The law is Libra. Aries and Libra are opposing signs. Virgo and Libra are connecting signs. The light is Jesus because he is the sun. You are going to have the light just a little while longer. Believe in the light. It's the sun, everyone. They're telling you this. It was just before the Passover festival. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. After that, he poured the water into a basin. He came to Simon Peter. It is the one who I will give this piece of bread. So Passover is Aries. Judas is Scorpio. The water in a basin is Aquarius. Simon is Peter. Simon Peter is Pisces. I wrote explain, but I already did that. The bread is Virgo. Pisces and Virgo are opposing signs. Aquarius, Pisces, and Aries are three connecting signs in the row. I mean, this is chapter after chapter after chapter after book after testament after ancient books. It's all done the same way. I am the true vine, but this is to fulfill what is written in their law. These both have to do with Libra, another chapter devoted to Libra esoterically. Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me? Take him yourselves and judge him by your own law. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at a time from the Passover. The cup is one of Ptolemy's 48, and it's called Crater. It is between Virgo and Libra. The law is Libra. Passover is Aries. Aries and Libra are connecting signs. We have a law, and according to that law, he must die. It was the day of preparation of the Passover. Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. There's three Marys: Mary Magdalene, Mary, the wife of Clopas, and Mother Mary. Let's talk about that for a minute. Mary. Why the name Mary? The Chaldeans called her Maratu. In Persia, her name was Mariam. Mère, M-E-R-E, in French means mother. In Egypt, it's Isis Mary. Look at this right here, this picture that I've implanted for you guys. This is the Virgin. This is the Virgo glyph. It's an M for all the M women with a Jesus fish attached to it, or a Vesica Pisces. This explains Jesus' tie to Mary. If you look at the Virgo glyph, they put it in right in your face. They put this stuff right in your face, and you have no idea what you're looking at. And then finally, later, knowing that everything has now been finished, and so that scripture would now be fulfilled, Jesus said, I am thirsty. A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it and put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he had received the drink, Jesus said, it is finished. And then he gave up his ghost, supposedly. And when they tell you in church, or you listen to Christians tell you when he said it is finished, he means prophecy is finished. That's not what happened. Look what happened. Remember, we're talking astrological season, farming calendar, all that kind of stuff, right? They gave him a sip of wine vinegar. They gave him a sip of wine. He said, it is finished. What he's talking about is the wine is finished. It's right there. It's about to turn. It is good. It is finished. It's just another metaphor for Libra. So everyone, thank you. I told you this one was going to be fun. I'm going to check the book of Acts. I'm going to check the book of Acts to see if I could find anything. But I will make a short video if this ends up being the entire Bible, if this is the end of it. I thank you guys for coming on this journey with me, from learning with me, for understanding, and for not thinking that I'm crazy. You know, people always think you're crazy when you're going to redefine or bring new meaning and life to the Bible. You know, people always want you to toe the line or do this and that. But if you've been with me since the beginning, or if you're with me now, you deserve a prize. Thank you.